so hot. Why am I wearing a black leather jacket in the middle of the desert? And why didn't we send Steve to get this water chip? He was obviously the better candidate.
I'm too important for the vault. I can't go.
You know what? What would Chad have done? You know what? He would have been a Chad. I mean, after all, he would run into fights and he did pretty well. So maybe that's what I gotta do. I just gotta be a Chad. Oh no.
How'd you?
Oh no. Super mutants.
No more
What do I do? Do I run? Do I fight? If I run, they're gonna get to the vault.
I smelled your
Oh, in
fear.
that case, there's only one thing to do. It's time to stand and fight.
Game's over.
Let's go. Oh,
Got something for you.
he brought a Gatling gun. And I, well, brought my fists.
Now try and hide from this.
Fuck.
Next time, put up a fight.
The darkness of the afterlife is all that awaits you now. May you find more peace in that world than you found in this one. War never changes.
You hear that, don't you? That, my dear viewers, is the sweet buttery voice of Ron Perlman in his first ever Fallout intro monologue before Bethesda acquired the franchise and changed Fallout forever, with Fallout 3 being a 3D instead of an isometric RPG. This was before wars were waged over whether Fallout 3 or New Vegas was the better title, and definitely before we got the watered-down RPG light version of Fallout with Fallout 4, and the garbage fire that was Fallout 76's release. Yes, indeed. Before all of this, we had Fallout. Little did anyone on the team at Interplay Productions know that they had set in motion a turn of events that would rock the foundation of the gaming industry back in 1997. It offered a different style of game compared to most RPGs of the time, with an emphasis on choice, in which the player is able to complete tasks in multiple ways. Also, a little side note here. Several of the people from Interplay Productions responsible for this game also founded Obsidian Entertainment. In other words, the beautiful bastards responsible for old Fallout were responsible for the titan that is Fallout New Vegas.
We're going to put the story somewhere in the West. So, of course, Vegas. I mean, what is more iconic when you think of crazy things that you could do in the West?
The groundwork had been laid for the future titles in the franchise that we know and love, from the special attributes, perks, karma to companions, the barter system, and of course, exploration. So how has the original Fallout held up after nearly 24 years since release? And why is it so legendary? Well, get ready to get hexed, get wasted, and find out just how unforgiving the Wasteland can be. Right off the bat, once you launch a new game, you are greeted with the character creation screen. 3 pre-made characters are already ready to go that have their skills and attributes assigned with a backstory to give them a bit more life. Honestly, I skipped over these pre-made characters in favor of making my own twisted abomination, but I really just wanted the bloody mess perk. Trust me, it's a fun perk to have when simply shooting someone makes them explode or get sawn in half. Fans of the franchise will immediately see familiar perks, traits, and the special attributes when they skip the pre-made characters like a real Fallout fan would and click on Create Character. Here, we're introduced to the attributes that have an effect on the combat, dialogue, what you can carry, the events you'll encounter as you wander the Wasteland, so on and so forth. It really is in-depth, and the way the skills and attributes work allow you to play in multiple ways, adding to the replayability of the game. Once you finish with character creation, it's time to strap on your Pip-Boy and head out into the Wasteland. And there you are, fresh out of the vault, in the middle of the darkest cave you have ever seen in your life, with giant rats that shoot up on your way out. Your mission? Get your ass out of the cave and find a water chip for Vault 13 before everyone dies from being so damn thirsty.
Simply put, we're running out of drinking water. No water, no vault.
But wait! There's more!
Before you lies an epic journey that will ultimately lead to saving or dooming the Wasteland to include the vault you just ditched for
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
Simply put, you are diving into a world that has been ravaged by nuclear warfare for that sick loot and those quests that will make you forget everyone in the vault is going to die without water. Where was I supposed to find a replacement water chip for the vault again? In this world, there are plenty of dangers that any long-standing fan of the franchise will recognize on your way to save your home. You have mole rats, raiders, super mutants, ghouls, gangs, rad scorpions, radiation, abandoned vaults. The list goes on. Of course, with all these dangers, you'll also explore plenty of locations, each location feeling fleshed out and having a purpose against the backdrop of the overall story. The first you'll likely encounter on your quest for a replacement water chip for your vault is Shady Sands. Fans of Fallout will recognize this place as the future capital of the new California Republic, and will even meet the first two presidents of the NCR, Aradesh and his daughter Tandy. Wow. You mean this dump ends up being the capital of the NCR? You bet your sweet ass I mean it. In Shady Sands, you'll encounter your first few quests outside of the main story. In general, both these quests and the other quests you'll encounter will heavily influence how the end plays out, whether good or bad. Should you help save Aradesh's daughter from the Great Khans when she gets kidnapped? Or go off on your merry way and forget she exists?
Quest? I'm already on a quest.
Even then, if you decide to save her, how will you save Tandy? Do you walk in and kill all the Great Khans? Join them? Or duke it out with the Great Khan leader in a deathmatch that you're completely unprepared for? It's quests like these you'll encounter throughout the game as you dive deeper into the post-apocalyptic Wasteland, while being absolutely spoiled for choices here. Speaking of choices, will you be a badass that walks into every fight like a T-800 on a mission to terminate Sarah Connor? Or will you be a futuristic version of James Bond, brimming with charisma and class, infiltrating shady organizations?
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
No matter how you look at it, these quests lead to something very important: the characters and companions. Beyond your own character, there is some, but not tons of character development, with side characters mainly due to the fact that characters you encounter will only briefly be a part of your journey. So, if you were expecting an HBO drama miniseries, you won't find it here. When you meet characters, though brief, you ultimately have a major effect on them. Maybe Killian is thanking you for getting rid of Gizmo in Junktown, turning Junktown into a small town of law and order. Or maybe Gizmo is thanking you for getting rid of Killian, with Gizmo ushering in prosperous times for Junktown despite the corruption. It's these kinds of situations that determine the characters that remain in the end, and how they affect the world around them based on your actions during these moments. Throughout the game, you'll also encounter companions who I wouldn't say really have much if any character development. Ian is not exactly going to stop you and bring up something about his past, for example, compared to, let's say, Veronica from Fallout New Vegas, whose backstory you can really get to know.
I want a dress.
Of course, the simplistic stories you get about companions and even side characters actually does well in the game. Why? Because of the element of choice, especially given how easy it is for an important character or companion to die in this game. For example, companions could potentially be with you throughout your entire journey. Odds are, though, they won't survive beyond a certain point. But at one point, on my second playthrough, I lost my companions, Dogmeat, and Ian when we were jumped by a dozen giant mantises.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
And I know I haven't mentioned it yet, but with everything I've covered up to this point, I just want to say this sort of depth to creating your own character, exploring the desolate wasteland, and having a far-reaching effect on the world around you is awesome, and something I wish some of the more modern games have had that had claimed to be in the RPG category. Just getting to the point of being able to dive into the conflicts between characters, finding little details about the game world around you, and being able to influence how things turn out is something truly legendary for this game, especially given how limited gaming technology was in the late 90s. But all that being said, let's talk about the gameplay, which in fact holds the biggest thing that makes this game so legendary, especially for its time, and that is control.
You must choose. But choose wisely.
The sheer level of control the game gives you is insane, which is phenomenal, but the catch is there is a lot for you to learn through trial and error, Google, just tinkering with the game in general, and wait for it, reading the manual. Oh man, that sure takes me back. I remember picking up games back in the day and always being excited to read the manual that came with them, and some of them were thick. Now this lack of direction on what to do other than, hey, go over to this place here and get XYZ item to save us and come back, can be a major turnoff for some players. But I don't think this is a bad thing, as I think most games nowadays spend so much time holding the player's hand.
Oh my god, there actually is a game journalism mode.
This brings me to a comparison between newer Fallout games and how they don't really give me the same feeling of difficulty and danger that old Fallout does.
Would you say we'd be venturing into a zone of danger?
Which reminds me, save, save, and save again. You will die, and you will die again, and again, and again, and again. Getting back on track though, Fallout really lets you loose after you leave the cave outside Vault 13 and pave your own path. In fact, you could go all the way to the city of Necropolis and find yourself suddenly transported to meet the ugly as hell lieutenant, who gives you the option to be one of those rat bastards and rat out the location of Vault 13 to turn its inhabitants into model citizens. With regard to endings, all endings play out depending on the choices you make when getting this level of control. I won't cover the story step by step, but one thing leads to another and you're suddenly looking at becoming either the savior or the destroyer of the Wasteland. Overall, there is no one singular way to play Fallout, and this ultimately ended up being the baseline for what would become the later entries into this series. In fact, Fallout 2 took what was good about Fallout and turned everything up a notch.
I can't say it's what I'd have picked for you, but if that's your name, that's your name.
Is Fallout perfect? No. I found some minor bugs here and there, like your character exploding, but then somehow standing back up and holstering their weapon before the death screen plays. Or how the inventory button disappears after collecting 13 holodiscs for your Pip-Boy. Now, anyone looking to play this legendary title in the future should also honestly think about utilizing the Fallout Fixed mod, a mod that brings bug fixes and quality of life improvements you don't get in the base game. And if you're worried about it adding tons of extra content, don't be, because it does give you the purest option, which only adds in fixes and those quality of life improvements without modifying quests or anything like that. In fact, some of this footage was made using the Fixed mod. Anyways, when it comes down to arms, armor, and other items, you'll start out with weak equipment and progress over time into more powerful weapons, stronger armor, and well, items in general don't really change that much here. I found that in general there isn't a ton of variety, but for myself, this isn't a big deal. For others, it may be a big deal. Also, the barter system itself is kind of frustrating at times when you want to buy items, but can only transfer at most 999 caps at one time, so you have to click back and forth repeatedly. I'd also like to point out when playing the game, it is really helpful knowing the keyboard shortcuts, because if you don't use them like I did on my first playthrough, you're going to be clicking all over the place like a madman. Seriously though, the game comes with a manual, and if you bought it digitally, it comes with both a digital version of the manual and keyboard shortcuts page, stored conveniently in your game's local files. And oddly enough, you can't view or change the in-game controls yourself through the main menu, unless I'm just blind, which, to be honest, you got me there. Now these are just a few minor issues I had with the game, but again, this game was released back in 1997, and it still does some things better than games in the modern era, like, I don't know, being a better RPG than certain unscrupulous titles I shall not mention here. I have had a lot of fun with the original Fallout, and it's one of those games you can't play just once. The first time I played it years ago, I honestly got lost in playing this game. Despite the small number of locations to visit, there are so many decisions to make, stories to discover, enemies to fight or negotiate with, character types to play, and questions to answer. I found myself craving more and more, just like the first time I played Fallout 3 10 plus years ago. The second time I played it over the last couple of weeks, I managed to stumble through it with a better understanding of what this game holds in store. And of course, dare I say, I'll be going back into the breach once more before you hear this sweet nasally voice again. I think overall the game has aged well, Though I do think the isometric setup does kind of feel a bit dated, the UI isn't as friendly as newer titles, though let's be fair, Fallout has never really been known for having a user-friendly UI, and there is some cut content from back in the day in Fallout 1 that I really think should have made it into the game's final release. Now, if you can look past how old this title is and are willing to give an old-school isometric turn-based combat RPG a shot, I think you'll find a strong game that shows you just how far the franchise has come over these years. This game has shown me a world that I didn't know was there with systems I didn't think would be that complex for their time, if we're being honest here. Having the ability to choose who you are, make choices that affect minor and major characters, being able to replay this game over and over again, and the massive influence this game would have on the series is awe-inspiring for a game that barely takes up space on a modern hard drive. And overall, for myself, that is why the original Fallout is so legendary. Well, my fellow war machines, looks like this is the end of the road for this lone wanderer. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, feel free to go down below, like the video, and tell me what you thought about it in the comments. It helps me find out if this is something that you like to see, and also how to improve my newer content. That being said, in the future, I will be covering other titles, such as Fallout 2 in this manner, so if you're interested, subscribe to the channel for more badass balls-to-the-wall action. Also, there is a link to the channel's community Discord down below, so if you're interested in joining and having some discussions on this video and other videos in the future, you're more than welcome to come in and say hello. That's all I got for you, so as usual, good luck on the battlefield.